The smoke still rises from the shattered windows of the Meridian Shopping Complex as Sarah Chen moves through the corridor with surgical precision. Her tactical vest bears no insignia, no rank, nothing to distinguish her from the dozens of other operators flooding the building. But in her hands, a standard-issue rifle becomes an extension of her will, and in her mind, a three-dimensional map tracks 87 hostages scattered across 4 floors of chaos. The timer on her watch reads 3 minutes, 42 seconds. Since breach. In 18 seconds, she will make a decision that saves 80 lives and validates a decade of quiet suffering. But the men who humiliated her at Quantico 6 months ago, who called her a liability and suggested she find a desk job, they have no idea that the unremarkable woman they dismissed is about to rewrite the textbook on tactical rescue operations. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Sarah Chen blends into the morning crowd at Union Station. With the practiced invisibility of someone who has spent years avoiding notice. At 32, she possesses the kind of forgettable features that surveillance instructors use as examples of natural camouflage. Average height, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, clothes chosen for function rather than fashion. To the commuters rushing past her on their way to government jobs and corporate meetings, she appears to be just another federal employee heading to another unremarkable day behind a desk. The truth lives in details that few people notice. The way her eyes constantly scan and catalog exit points, potential cover positions, crowd dynamics. How she unconsciously maintains tactical spacing, even in civilian environments, never allowing herself to be cornered or blocked. The slight bulge beneath her left shoulder that speaks of a concealed carry permit and the discipline to use it. These habits, ingrained through years of training and real-world application, mark her as something far more dangerous than the mild-mannered intelligence analyst her identification card claims her to be. Her apartment in Arlington reflects that same studied normalcy. Government-issued furniture, minimal personal effects, the kind of space that could be abandoned in 15 minutes without leaving meaningful traces. But the bathroom mirror is positioned to observe the front door. The bedroom window offers multiple egress routes, and beneath the kitchen sink, wrapped in waterproof plastic, lies equipment that most civilians never see outside of action movies. Sarah has lived this double existence for so long that the boundaries between her public persona and her true self have blurred into something resembling normal life. At the nondescript office building where she reports each morning, colleagues know her as Chun from analysis. The woman who processes intelligence reports with mechanical efficiency and rarely speaks unless spoken to. She arrives precisely on time, completes her assignments without complaint, and leaves exactly at 5:30 without socializing or forming the personal connections that make office environments bearable. Her supervisor rates her as competent, but unremarkable, the kind of employee who neither excels nor fails enough to warrant attention. What her colleagues cannot see is how Sarah's fingers sometimes trace old scars hidden beneath long sleeves, or how her eyes track the movement patterns of everyone who enters her peripheral vision. They do not notice that she never sits with her back to a door, never takes the elevator when stairs are available, never relaxes completely even during lunch breaks. The woman they dismiss as antisocial is actually hyper-vigilant, a state of constant readiness that most people experience only during moments of acute danger. The transformation began 12 years earlier when Sarah was still Sergeant Chun of the Army's 75th Ranger Regiment, one of only a handful of women to complete the grueling selection process and earn the right to serve alongside the military's elite light infantry. She had distinguished herself during 3 combat deployments, earning commendations for actions that remained classified long after her separation from service. Her tactical mind could process complex scenarios with computer-like precision. While her physical capabilities exceeded those of many male counterparts who outweighed her by 50 pounds, the unit had become her family in ways that transcended typical military bonds. These were men who had seen her under fire, who trusted her with their lives and had their trust returned in kind. Sarah found in their brotherhood something she had never experienced in civilian life, a sense of belonging based purely on competence and mutual respect. Her small stature and quiet demeanor, liabilities in many social situations, became advantages in operations requiring stealth and precision. She could move through hostile territory like a ghost, gathering intelligence and eliminating threats before enemies realized they were compromised. But military service, even at elite levels, operates within organizational structures that prioritize conformity over individual excellence. Sarah's unconventional approaches to tactical problems, while effective, generated friction with commanders who preferred textbook solutions to creative innovation. Her tendency to question orders that seemed tactically unsound was viewed as insubordination rather than valuable input. Most damaging of all, her gender remained a constant source of tension in units, where female integration was still viewed with suspicion by traditionalist elements. The incident that ended her military career occurred during a classified operation in eastern Afghanistan. Sarah's squad had been tasked with eliminating a high-value target who had taken refuge in a compound, surrounded by civilians. The approved plan called for a direct assault that would likely result in significant collateral damage. Sarah identified an alternative approach that could achieve the mission objective while minimizing civilian casualties. But her squad leader, Staff Sergeant Marcus Holbrook, dismissed her input and ordered the assault to proceed as planned. When the operation went wrong, resulting in the deaths of 3 civilians and the escape of the primary target, Sarah found herself facing an investigation that focused more on her deviation from orders than on the tactical failures that had caused the mission to fail. Holbrook, whose family connections within the military hierarchy provided him with protection Sarah lacked, testified that her questioning of orders had undermined unit cohesion and contributed to the operational failure. The investigation concluded with Sarah receiving a reprimand that effectively ended any hope of advancement within special operations. Rather than accept reassignment to a conventional unit where her skills would be wasted, Sarah resigned her commission and disappeared into the vast bureaucracy of federal employment. The transition from elite operator to desk analyst should have been devastating, but Sarah approached it with the same methodical precision she brought to military operations. She studied intelligence analysis with the same intensity she had once applied to tactical training, earning certifications and clearances that opened doors within the shadowy world of national security. Her current position at the Defense Intelligence Agency provides access to information that keeps her connected to the operational world she had been forced to abandon. Through classified reports and interagency communications, she maintains awareness of global threat patterns and tactical developments. It is through these channels that she learns about new training programs, experimental methodologies, and opportunities that might allow someone with her background to return to operational status. The morning that changes everything arrives. Disguised as routine administrative correspondence, buried among the usual reports and policy updates is a brief announcement about a joint federal task force being formed to address emerging domestic terrorism threats. The Rapid Response Tactical Unit represents a new approach to crisis situations, combining traditional law enforcement with military-style special operations capabilities. Applications are being accepted from qualified personnel across multiple agencies, with selection based on demonstrated competence rather than organizational politics. Sarah reads the announcement 3 times before the implications fully register. For the first time in 6 years, a door has opened that might lead back to operational work. The application requirements are stringent, demanding not only current security clearances and physical fitness certifications, but also demonstrated experience in high-stress tactical environments. Most significantly, the selection process will be conducted by outside contractors to eliminate interagency bias and ensure that the best candidates are chosen regardless of political considerations. The decision to apply requires Sarah to risk the comfortable anonymity she has built around herself. Submitting an application means exposing her military record to scrutiny, potentially drawing attention from people who remember her unfavorably. It means acknowledging that 6 years of quiet service have not extinguished her desire to return to work that matters, operations where her skills can make a difference in life and death situations. 3 weeks later, Sarah receives notification that her application has been accepted for the preliminary screening phase. The letter provides minimal details beyond reporting instructions and a list of required equipment. No encouragement, no acknowledgement of her qualifications, just the bureaucratic language of official correspondence. The training facility is located at a classified site in rural Virginia, accessible only through a security checkpoint that processes her credentials with the kind of thorough verification reserved for highly sensitive operations. From the moment she arrives, Sarah recognizes the familiar atmosphere of elite military training. The facility itself is unremarkable, a collection of concrete buildings and training areas that could belong to any number of federal agencies. But the personnel moving through the compound carry themselves with the confident bearing of professionals who have seen real action, and the equipment visible in staging areas represents cutting-edge tactical technology. The other candidates are exactly what Sarah expected. 37 men and 3 other women, drawn from FBI hostage rescue teams, military special operations units, and elite law enforcement agencies. Their conversations reveal impressive credentials, recent operational experience, and the kind of professional networks that open doors within the tactical community. Sarah listens without contributing, cataloging information about their backgrounds while maintaining the unremarkable presence that has served her well in civilian environments. Agent Rebecca Torres of the FBI emerges as the most qualified female candidate, her resume including successful operations against domestic terrorist cells and international training exchanges with foreign counterterrorism units. Agent Maria Santos from DEA brings extensive experience in high-risk drug interdiction operations, while Captain Lisa Park represents Army Special Forces with multiple combat deployments. These are women who have remained operational throughout their careers, maintaining the sharp edge that Sarah has been forced to dull through years of desk work. The male candidates display the confident camaraderie typical of special operations veterans. They share stories of recent missions, compare notes on equipment preferences, and form natural alliances based on shared experiences and mutual respect. Sarah's background, while impressive on paper, lacks the recent operational experience that creates instant credibility within this community. Her 6-year absence from tactical work marks her as an outsider, someone who may have once belonged, but has since lost her edge. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Training begins with psychological evaluations designed to identify candidates who can function effectively under extreme stress. Sarah approaches these assessments with the same careful preparation she brings to all challenges, but the questions probe areas where her recent experience is limited. Scenarios involving active hostage situations, terrorist attacks, and mass casualty events require responses based on current operational doctrine and recent tactical innovations. Sarah's answers draw from theoretical knowledge and older experience. Competent, but lacking the instinctive confidence that comes from regular exposure to such situations. Physical fitness testing reveals the gap between her current capabilities and those of candidates who have maintained operational fitness standards. Sarah completes all required events within acceptable parameters, but her performance places her in the middle of the pack rather than among the leaders. The margin between success and failure in elite units is often measured in seconds or single repetitions, and Sarah's scores reflect the inevitable decline that comes from years away from intensive training. The obstacle course proves particularly challenging, as it incorporates elements specifically designed to test tactical movement under stress. Candidates must navigate barriers while carrying equipment loads, engage simulated targets with precision, weapons fire, and demonstrate proficiency with specialized tactical gear. Sarah's muscle memory serves her well in familiar areas, but new techniques and equipment updates require learning curves that other candidates have already mastered through recent operational experience. Instructors observe these exercises with professional detachment, making notes that will influence candidate rankings and elimination decisions. Their evaluations focus not only on current performance, but also on adaptability and learning potential. Sarah demonstrates solid fundamentals and quick comprehension of new concepts, but she lacks the immediate mastery that instructors expect from truly elite candidates. The first elimination occurs after 2 weeks of evaluation, reducing the candidate pool from 41 to 30. Sarah survives this cut, but barely, her overall ranking placing her among the marginal candidates whose continued participation depends on significant improvement in subsequent phases. The announcement comes without explanation or feedback. Simply a list of names authorized to continue training posted on the compound bulletin board. Those who advance move into specialized tactical training that focuses specifically on hostage rescue operations. The scenarios become increasingly complex, involving multiple hostage locations, armed resistance, and time-critical decision-making. Candidates work in teams of varying composition, their performance evaluated both individually and collectively. Leadership opportunities rotate among team members, allowing instructors to assess each candidate's ability to command as well as follow orders. Sarah finds herself assigned to Team Charlie, a mixed group that includes 2 FBI agents, 1 military special operator, and Agent Torres, whose natural leadership abilities quickly establish her as the team's informal commander. The dynamic within the team reflects broader patterns observable throughout the training program, with recent operational experience serving as the primary determinant of influence and respect. Sarah's input is acknowledged politely but rarely incorporated into team tactics, her ideas viewed as theoretically sound but potentially unreliable under actual operational stress. The disparity becomes most apparent during force-on-force exercises where teams compete against each other using simulated weapons and live opposition forces. These scenarios test not only tactical skills, but also the ability to adapt and improvise when initial plans encounter unexpected resistance. Sarah's analytical approach to problem-solving, honed through years of intelligence work, allows her to identify vulnerabilities and opportunities that others miss. However, her recommendations are often dismissed in favor of more conventional approaches advocated by team members with recent combat experience. During one particularly challenging exercise involving a simulated school takeover, Sarah identifies a maintenance access route that would allow the team to bypass heavily defended main entrances and approach the objective from an unexpected direction. Her analysis of building plans and defensive positions is thorough and accurate, but Torres decides to pursue a more direct assault approach that has worked in previous exercises. The team's failure to achieve mission objectives within the time limit results in a poor evaluation for all members, but the critique focuses on execution rather than planning. Instructors maintain professional neutrality in their assessments, but Sarah detects subtle patterns in their feedback that suggest growing skepticism about her operational readiness. Comments about her performance emphasize theoretical knowledge over practical application, competence over excellence, adequacy over distinction. The language is carefully neutral, but the underlying message is clear. She is not measuring up to the standards expected of truly elite operators. The psychological pressure intensifies as the program progresses and the candidate pool continues to shrink. Each elimination cycle brings increased scrutiny of marginal performers, with instructors focusing additional attention on candidates whose continued participation is questionable. Sarah finds herself subjected to extra evaluations, supplementary physical training, and detailed reviews of her tactical decision-making that other candidates are not required to undergo. The additional attention serves to highlight rather than remedy her perceived deficiencies. While Sarah demonstrates consistent improvement in areas where her skills had deteriorated during civilian service, she cannot overcome the experiential gap that separates her from candidates who have remained operationally active. Her progress, while significant, occurs against a baseline that places her at a disadvantage compared to peers who began from higher starting points. Agent Torres attempts to offer encouragement during a rare moment of informal conversation, suggesting that Sarah's analytical skills provide valuable perspective even if her operational capabilities have declined. The gesture is well-intentioned but reinforces Sarah's growing awareness that she is viewed more as a support asset than as a potential frontline operator. The distinction between those destined for operational roles and those better suited for planning and analysis becomes increasingly apparent as training progresses. The breaking point arrives during a complex multi-phase exercise designed to test all aspects of candidate preparation. Teams must plan and execute a simulated rescue operation against a heavily defended target, incorporating intelligence analysis, tactical planning, and precision execution under time pressure. Sarah's team receives a scenario involving hostages held in an office building by heavily armed terrorists with access to explosive devices and surveillance systems. Sarah's analysis of the intelligence package reveals several critical vulnerabilities in the terrorists' defensive setup, including blind spots in their surveillance coverage and structural weaknesses that could be exploited to create tactical advantages. Her briefing to the team is comprehensive and accurate, demonstrating mastery of both analytical techniques and tactical principles. However, when the team moves to the execution phase, her role becomes secondary to operators with more recent combat experience. The exercise unfolds according to the team's plan until unexpected complications arise. The terrorist opposition force, played by instructor personnel, adapts their tactics in ways that invalidate several assumptions underlying the team's approach. As the situation deteriorates, Sarah identifies alternative solutions that could salvage the mission, but her recommendations are either ignored or implemented too late to be effective. The team's failure to achieve primary objectives results in simulated casualties among both hostages and operators. During the post-exercise debrief, criticism focuses heavily on leadership failures and tactical execution rather than intelligence, analysis, or planning. Sarah's contributions are acknowledged as technically competent, but are overshadowed by the operational failures that led to mission failure. The subtle implication is that while her analytical work was adequate, it failed to account for the dynamic realities of tactical operations, where theoretical plans encounter practical resistance. The final elimination before graduation reduces the remaining candidates to 15, selected for assignment to operational teams within the new task force. Sarah's name does not appear on the list. Instead, she receives notification that while her performance was commendable, she would be better suited for an analytical support role within the task force structure. The language is respectful and acknowledges her contributions to the training program, but the message is unambiguous. She is not considered qualified for frontline operational duties. The rejection strikes Sarah with unexpected force, despite her growing awareness that elimination was likely. 6 years of careful preparation, months of intensive training, and weeks of professional evaluation have concluded with the same assessment that ended her military career: competent, but not exceptional; suitable for support roles, but not for Primary operational responsibility. The pattern of her professional life reasserts itself with depressing consistency. Packing her belongings in the temporary quarters she has occupied for 3 months, Sarah confronts the reality that her operational career may truly be over. The civilian analytical position awaiting her return to Arlington represents stability and steady advancement within the intelligence community, but it also confirms her permanent exile from the world where her true talents could make their greatest impact. The compromise feels like surrender, an acceptance that some doors, once closed, never reopen. The drive back to Arlington passes in contemplative silence as Sarah processes the implications of her failure to qualify for operational assignment. The familiar suburban landscape that surrounds her apartment building represents a return to the safe predictability of civilian life, but also a final acknowledgement that her dreams of returning to tactical operations were unrealistic fantasies rather than achievable goals. At 32, she faces the prospect of spending the remainder of her career behind a desk, analyzing operations rather than conducting them. Her apartment, unchanged during her absence, feels smaller and more confining than it had before her departure for training. The carefully maintained anonymity that once provided comfort now seems like a prison of her own construction. She has proven capable of existing in the margins of the operational world, but not of reclaiming her place within it. The equipment hidden beneath her kitchen sink serves as a reminder of skills that will never again be tested in environments where they matter most. Returning to work at the Defense Intelligence Agency requires Sarah to adjust not only to her old routine but also to the subtle shift in how colleagues perceive her. Word of her participation in the tactical training program has circulated through office gossip, creating expectations that she would either succeed dramatically or fail completely. Her return to analytical duties without promotion or recognition suggests the latter, marking her as someone who had aspired beyond her capabilities and been appropriately humbled. The work itself remains unchanged, processing reports, analyzing threat patterns, and producing assessments that inform decision-makers several levels removed from operational realities. Sarah approaches these tasks with renewed focus, perhaps hoping to find in analytical excellence the satisfaction that has been denied to her in operational contexts. Her reports demonstrate the same meticulous attention to detail that characterized her tactical planning, but the impact remains indirect and largely invisible. Months pass in this routine of professional competence and personal resignation. Sarah maintains her physical fitness more from habit than hope, continues her study of tactical developments more from intellectual curiosity than career ambition. The equipment beneath her sink remains ready for deployment that will never come, while her analytical skills grow sharper through daily application to theoretical rather than practical problems. The call that changes everything arrives on a Tuesday morning while Sarah reviews overnight intelligence summaries in her cubicle. The caller identifies himself as Deputy Director Harrison Mitchell of the newly formed Rapid Response Tactical Unit, the same organization whose training program had rejected her months earlier. His voice carries the crisp authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance with his requests, but also a note of urgency that suggests this is not a routine administrative contact. Mitchell explains that an active situation has developed at the Meridian Shopping Complex in downtown Washington, where an unknown number of armed individuals have taken control of the building during peak shopping hours. Initial reports suggest between 80 and 100 hostages scattered across multiple floors, with the perpetrators demonstrating sophisticated knowledge of building security systems and tactical procedures. Local law enforcement has established a perimeter, but the scale and complexity of the situation exceed their capabilities. The tactical team assigned to respond has encountered unexpected complications. 3 of their primary operators are currently deployed overseas unclassified. missions while 2 others are recovering from injuries sustained during a training exercise the previous week. Additionally, the team's intelligence analyst has been hospitalized with a medical emergency, leaving them without the analytical support necessary to process the complex information flows that such operations generate. Mitchell's request is both simple and extraordinary. He wants Sarah to deploy immediately as a temporary intelligence analyst for the tactical team, providing on-site analytical support during the crisis response. Her security clearances are current, her analytical capabilities are well documented, and her recent tactical training makes her uniquely qualified to understand operational requirements. The assignment would last only as long as the crisis itself, perhaps a few hours or a few days, but would provide her with the operational experience she had been denied during formal selection. Sarah's acceptance requires no deliberation. Within minutes, she has gathered her personal equipment and begun the drive across the city toward a situation that will either validate her belief in her own capabilities or confirm that her operational career ended permanently 6 years earlier. The tactical vest and weapons she retrieves from her apartment carry the weight of hopes that have been disappointed too often, but also the promise of redemption that has sustained her through years of professional exile. The Meridian Shopping Complex occupies 6 city blocks in the heart of Washington's commercial district, a massive structure containing over 200 retail establishments, restaurants, and service providers. On a typical Tuesday morning, the building hosts thousands of shoppers, employees, and visitors moving through a maze of corridors, escalators, and common areas. The complex's size and complexity make it an ideal target for anyone seeking to create maximum chaos while minimizing the authorities' ability to respond effectively. Sarah arrives at the command post to find controlled chaos. Law enforcement vehicles from multiple agencies create a defensive perimeter around the building, while specialized units prepare equipment for potential assault operations. The scene combines the urgent efficiency of professionals responding to crisis with the underlying tension that comes from facing an unknown threat with potentially catastrophic consequences. The tactical team leader, Commander David Walsh, greets Sarah with professional courtesy tinged by obvious skepticism. Her civilian clothes and analyst identification mark her as someone from outside the operational community, potentially useful for information processing but not for tactical decision-making. Walsh's briefing is concise and factual. 15 armed individuals have taken control of the shopping complex using coordinated timing that suggests extensive planning and reconnaissance. The perpetrators have demonstrated knowledge of building security systems, disabling cameras in strategic locations while leaving others operational to monitor law enforcement response. They have established multiple defensive positions throughout the building and appear to be moving hostages between locations to prevent rescue teams from developing accurate intelligence about their positions. Most concerning, they have made no demands and established no communication with authorities, suggesting either ideological motivation or plans that do not include negotiated resolution. Walsh explains that the tactical team's original plan called for simultaneous entries at multiple points, using building plans and security camera feeds to coordinate movement toward hostage locations. However, the perpetrators' control of building systems has compromised much of the electronic intelligence that such operations typically rely upon. Without current information about hostage positions and terrorist movements, any assault risks becoming a blind charge into unknown resistance. Sarah's assignment is to establish and maintain an accurate picture of the situation inside the building using all available intelligence sources. Security camera feeds that remain operational, electronic communications intercepts, structural analysis of building plans, and coordination with human intelligence sources will provide the foundation for tactical planning. Her analytical work will determine not only whether a rescue operation is feasible, but also how it should be conducted to maximize hostage survival. The intelligence picture that emerges from Sarah's analysis reveals a situation more complex than initial reports suggested. The perpetrators have divided the building into distinct zones of control, with different groups responsible for specific areas and functions. Their movement patterns suggest military-style organization and discipline, while their tactical positions demonstrate sophisticated understanding of urban combat principles. These are not desperate individuals acting impulsively, but trained operators executing a carefully planned operation. Sarah's examination of building blueprints reveals several critical factors that previous assessments had overlooked. The complex's ventilation system includes maintenance corridors that connect all floors and sections, providing potential routes for movement that bypass heavily defended main passages. Additionally, the building's structural design creates natural choke points where small tactical teams could establish decisive advantages over larger forces. Most importantly, the terrorists' defensive positions, while well chosen for repelling conventional assault, contain vulnerabilities that could be exploited by operators with detailed knowledge of building systems. Her analysis also identifies patterns in hostage movements that suggest the perpetrators are concentrating captives in locations that serve their tactical rather than negotiation purposes. The largest group, approximately 50 individuals, appears to be held in the main atrium where their visibility serves both as psychological pressure on authorities and as human shields against assault. Smaller groups are distributed throughout the building in positions that would require separate rescue operations, complicating any coordinated response. As Sarah develops this intelligence picture, the tactical team prepares for potential assault operations under increasing time pressure. Early afternoon reports suggest that some hostages may require medical attention, while unconfirmed intelligence indicates the perpetrators may be preparing to execute captives if their unknown demands are not met. The window for successful intervention appears to be closing, but conventional assault approaches risk catastrophic casualties among hostages who cannot be evacuated before combat begins. Walsh reviews Sarah's analysis with growing interest, recognizing that her detailed understanding of building systems and tactical positioning provides options that standard approaches would not consider. Her identification of maintenance corridors and structural vulnerabilities creates possibilities for unconventional entry routes and surprise attacks that could succeed where direct assaults would fail. However, implementing her suggestions requires tactical operators who can navigate complex building systems while maintaining combat effectiveness. The moment that changes everything occurs when Walsh receives word that his primary assault team has been delayed by equipment failures and will not arrive for at least 2 hours. The secondary team, while highly trained, lacks the specialized skills necessary to implement the complex approach that Sarah's analysis suggests. As afternoon shadows lengthen and intelligence reports indicate increasing desperation among the perpetrators, Walsh faces a commander's worst nightmare: clear tactical opportunities that cannot be exploited due to resource limitations. Sarah recognizes the situation before Walsh verbalizes it. His team possesses the analytical framework for success, but lacks the operational capability to implement it effectively. Her analysis has identified the solution, but implementation requires someone who understands both the intelligence picture and the tactical requirements for exploiting it. The gap between planning and execution has become the critical factor determining whether 80 lives are saved or lost. When Sarah volunteers to accompany the assault team as a tactical guide, Walsh's initial reaction is immediate refusal. Civilians do not participate in high-risk operations, regardless of their qualifications or the tactical advantages they might provide. However, as time pressure mounts and alternatives disappear, the practical realities of the situation force him to reconsider policies that were written for normal rather than extraordinary circumstances. Sarah's argument is simple and compelling. She possesses the most detailed understanding of building systems and terrorist positions currently available, while her recent tactical training provides at least basic operational capability. Her role would be limited to guiding the assault team through optimal routes and identifying targets based on real-time intelligence analysis. She would not serve as a primary operator, but as a force multiplier who enables more effective use of limited tactical resources. The decision Walsh makes violates protocols, exceeds his authority, and risks his career. But it also represents the kind of command initiative that elite operations sometimes require. Sarah will accompany Team Alpha through the maintenance corridors she has identified, providing tactical guidance while remaining under the protection of qualified operators. Her participation transforms a desperate gamble into a calculated risk, with reasonable prospects for success. The final briefing occurs as early evening light fades beyond the command post windows. Sarah's route analysis has identified an approach that allows the assault team to reach all major hostage locations within 4 minutes of initial breach, provided they can navigate building systems without triggering defensive responses. Perpetrators' confidence in their defensive positions becomes a liability when those positions are bypassed rather than confronted directly. Sarah checks her equipment one final time, ensuring that communication systems, tactical gear, and the pistol she has not fired in anger for 6 years are ready for immediate use. The weight of responsibility settles across her shoulders as she prepares to transition from analytical support to operational participation. 80 lives depend on her ability to translate theoretical knowledge into practical action under the most demanding circumstances possible. The approach through maintenance corridors proves as viable as Sarah's analysis suggested. Moving in single file through spaces barely wide enough for tactical equipment, the assault team reaches predetermined positions without triggering alarms or encountering resistance. Sarah's guidance proves essential as they navigate a maze of mechanical rooms, utility passages, and service corridors that building plans only roughly approximate. The coordinated assault begins at exactly 1847, with simultaneous breaches at 4 separate locations. Sarah guides Team Alpha to their primary objective, the main atrium where 50 hostages are held under guard by 6 armed perpetrators. Her real-time analysis of defensive positions allows the team to approach from an angle that neutralizes most terrorist advantages while minimizing crossfire risks to hostages. The engagement itself unfolds with shocking speed. 4 minutes of coordinated movement, precise shooting, and tactical expertise result in the neutralization of all 15 perpetrators, with minimal casualties among hostages or operators. Sarah's role throughout the operation exceeds her planned limitations as tactical situations require real-time decisions that only someone with both analytical knowledge and operational capability can make effectively. When smoke clears and the complex is secured, 87 hostages emerge alive from what could have been a massacre. 3 individuals require medical treatment for minor injuries, while psychological counseling is arranged for all survivors. The operation succeeds beyond the most optimistic projections, validating tactical approaches that conventional wisdom would have dismissed as impossibly risky. In the aftermath, as emergency services process survivors and investigators begin documenting evidence, Sarah finds herself facing questions about her participation that go far beyond standard operational debriefings. Her transition from analytical support to tactical participation challenges organizational boundaries that exist for legitimate reasons, but her contribution to the operation's success cannot be disputed or ignored. Commander Walsh's report emphasizes that the mission's success depended critically on analytical capabilities that enabled unconventional tactical approaches. Without Sarah's detailed understanding of building systems and real-time intelligence analysis, the operation would have required either catastrophic frontal assaults or lengthy, siege tactics that would likely have resulted in significant hostage casualties. Deputy Director Mitchell's evaluation goes further, noting that Sarah's performance during the crisis demonstrates operational capabilities that formal training assessments had failed to recognize. Her ability to transition seamlessly between analytical and tactical roles, while maintaining effectiveness under extreme stress, suggests that previous evaluations may have emphasized credentials over competence, recent experience over fundamental capability. 6 weeks later, Sarah receives notification of her selection for permanent assignment to the Rapid Response Tactical Unit, not as an analyst but as a full operational member with additional responsibilities for intelligence integration. The assignment represents vindication not only of her individual capabilities, but also of the principle that excellence can emerge from unexpected sources when organizational structures are flexible enough to recognize and develop it. The Meridian Shopping Complex reopens 3 months after the crisis, its corridors once again filled with shoppers and families going about their daily lives. Few of the people moving through those spaces realize how close they came to tragedy, or how an unremarkable analyst's determination to reclaim her operational career resulted in their survival. The building's maintenance corridors remain accessible only to authorized personnel, but they serve as permanent reminder that the most direct path is not always the most effective one. Sarah's new office at the Tactical Unit headquarters overlooks the Potomac River, a view that reminds her daily of horizons that seemed forever closed, but proved merely obscured by circumstances beyond her control. The equipment that once gathered dust beneath her kitchen sink now serves its intended purpose, while analytical skills honed through years of exile provide tactical advantages that purely operational backgrounds cannot match. Her story becomes part of unit folklore, told to new recruits as an example of how excellence can survive even the most determined efforts to suppress it. But Sarah herself focuses on tomorrow's challenges rather than yesterday's vindication, understanding that each operation brings new opportunities to prove that underestimation is the opponent's mistake, not the warrior's weakness. In a world where threats emerge without warning, the most valuable operators are often those who have learned to excel despite being told they don't belong. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's Joint Terrorism Task Force operates from a fortified complex in Quantico that bears no external markings indicating its purpose. Within its secure walls, analysts and operators work around the clock to identify and neutralize threats that most Americans never know existed. It is here, 6 months before the Meridian Shopping Complex crisis, that Sarah Chen first encounters the institutional forces that will attempt to destroy her operational aspirations through systematic humiliation disguised as professional evaluation. The recruitment letter arrives on official letterhead, bearing classifications that require Sarah to sign additional security agreements before even reading its contents. The Tactical Integration Assessment Program represents an experimental collaboration between multiple federal agencies, designed to identify personnel capable of bridging the gap between analytical intelligence work and frontline tactical operations. The program promises opportunities for qualified candidates to transition from desk assignments to operational roles, provided they can demonstrate exceptional capabilities under intensive evaluation. Sarah reads the letter 3 times before allowing herself to believe its implications. After 6 years of analytical exile, someone has recognized that her combination of military experience and intelligence expertise might provide value beyond routine report processing. The application requirements are extensive, demanding not only current security clearances and fitness certifications, but also detailed psychological evaluations and practical demonstrations of tactical knowledge that has been dormant for years. The application process itself serves as the first indication that Sarah's participation will be met with skepticism rather than enthusiasm. Questions probe not only her qualifications, but also her motivations for seeking operational assignment after years in analytical roles. Psychological evaluators seem particularly interested in her military separation, asking repeatedly about incidents that led to her resignation and whether unresolved issues might affect her performance under stress. Dr. Patricia Kellerman, the program's chief psychologist, conducts the final evaluation with clinical detachment that borders on hostility. Her questions focus relentlessly on Sarah's perceived failures during military service, suggesting that personnel who cannot succeed within established structures are unlikely to excel in even more demanding environments. The session concludes with Kellerman's observation that Sarah's desire to return to operational work might represent an inability to accept the limitations that led to her original career change. Despite these warning signs, Sarah receives notification of her acceptance into the preliminary phase of the program. The letter provides reporting instructions for the Quantico facility and a list of required equipment that reads like preparation for actual combat deployment. No explanation accompanies her selection, no encouragement about her prospects, just the bureaucratic language of official correspondence that reveals nothing about the thinking behind personnel decisions. The journey to Quantico carries symbolic weight beyond mere transportation. Sarah drives south through Virginia countryside that houses some of the nation's most secretive military and intelligence installations, each mile representing movement toward possibilities that have been denied to her for years. The equipment bag in her passenger seat contains tactical gear that has remained unused since her military separation, items that connect her to the operational identity she has never fully abandoned. The facility itself reveals its true nature. Only gradually. What appears from the highway to be another anonymous government complex transforms upon closer inspection into a sophisticated training environment designed for realistic tactical scenarios. Shooting ranges accommodate weapons from standard sidearms to specialized sniper systems, while building mock-ups allow for the rehearsal of entry techniques and close-quarters combat situations. Fellow candidates arrive throughout the afternoon, their varied backgrounds immediately apparent in how they carry themselves and interact with the environment. Former military personnel move with the unconscious discipline of individuals accustomed to weapons and danger, while law enforcement veterans display the alert wariness that comes from years of dealing with civilian populations that might include hidden threats. A smaller group of current federal employees, like Sarah, seem less comfortable with the overtly tactical nature of their surroundings. Agent Michael Reeves of the FBI's hostage rescue team establishes himself early as the program's informal leader through a combination of recent operational experience and natural charisma. His stories of successful operations against domestic terrorists and international criminal organizations provide benchmarks against which other candidates inevitably measure themselves. Reeves treats Sarah with professional courtesy, but his questions about her background carry undertones suggesting doubt about her operational readiness. Detective James Morrison from NYPD's Emergency Service Unit brings urban combat experience that proves immediately relevant to many training scenarios. His knowledge of building clearing techniques and crowd control measures in densely populated environments provides tactical insights that more traditional military backgrounds cannot match. Morrison's acceptance of Sarah as a qualified participant offers some protection against the skepticism she encounters from other candidates. Captain Brian Foster represents Army Special Forces with 3 recent combat deployments and a reputation for innovative tactical solutions under extreme pressure. His evaluation of other candidates carries significant weight within the group, making his initial dismissal of Sarah's capabilities particularly damaging to her standing. Foster makes no effort to conceal his belief that analytical personnel lacked the psychological hardness necessary for tactical operations. The program director, Colonel Jonathan Drake, addresses the assembled candidates with the kind of briefing that immediately establishes the seriousness of their undertaking. The tactical integration assessment represents more than training. It serves as a proving ground for concepts that could reshape how federal agencies respond to complex security threats. Successful candidates will join operational units where their performance could determine whether civilians live or die during crisis situations. Drake emphasizes that the program has attracted intense scrutiny from senior officials, who view it as either innovative adaptation to evolving threats or dangerous experimentation that compromises proven procedures. Failure rates are expected to be high, with fewer than 20% of candidates anticipated to complete the program successfully. Those who do succeed will earn assignments that offer both exceptional opportunities and proportional risks. The first week of evaluation focuses on physical fitness standards that have been calibrated to operational rather than administrative requirements. Sarah's preparation proves adequate for most challenges, but the margin between her performance and that of candidates who have maintained tactical fitness throughout their careers becomes immediately apparent. Her completion times for obstacle courses and endurance runs place her consistently in the lower half of candidate rankings. Agent Torres, the FBI representative who had seemed like a potential ally during initial introductions, distances herself from Sarah as performance differences become visible. Torres's own standing within the program depends partly on demonstrating that female candidates can excel in tactical environments, a goal that appears threatened by association with someone whose capabilities seem marginal. The calculation is coldly professional but personally devastating for Sarah, who recognizes the dynamics but cannot address them directly. Combat marksmanship evaluations reveal both Sarah's retained skills and the subtle biases that influence assessment procedures. Her accuracy with standard weapons exceeds minimum requirements and matches the performance of several male candidates, but instructors focus more attention on her technique than on her results. Comments about her shooting stance and grip pressure suggest deficiencies that would be overlooked in others, creating impressions of marginal competence despite objective evidence to the contrary. Tactical movement exercises expose Sarah to the kind of scrutiny that makes fair evaluation impossible. While other candidates' mistakes are treated as learning opportunities requiring brief correction, her errors receive detailed analysis that emphasizes potential consequences rather than corrective techniques. The message conveyed to observers is that while mistakes are normal for most participants, they represent fundamental limitations when made by someone whose presence in the program is questionable. Hand-to-hand combat training provides another venue for highlighting perceived weaknesses. Sarah's smaller physical stature becomes a focus of instructor attention, with repeated emphasis on how size disadvantages could prove fatal in real operational scenarios. The instruction she receives concentrates on defensive techniques and evasion rather than the aggressive tactics taught to larger candidates, reinforcing impressions that she is better suited for support roles than frontline operations. Psychological evaluations continue throughout the training program, with weekly sessions that probe candidates' mental resilience and decision-making capabilities under stress. Dr. Kellerman's assessments of Sarah focus persistently on her military separation and subsequent career choices, suggesting that her desire to return to operational work represents unresolved psychological issues rather than legitimate professional ambition. These evaluations become part of each candidate's permanent file, influencing all subsequent assessments. The first major elimination occurs after 3 weeks of evaluation, reducing the candidate pool from 43 to 31. Sarah survives this cut, but her retention appears to result more from the program's need to maintain minimum female participation than from recognition of her qualifications. The announcement comes with individual briefings where candidates receive feedback about their performance in areas requiring improvement. Sarah's briefing emphasizes technical competence while questioning whether she possesses the intangible qualities necessary for tactical leadership. Colonel Drake acknowledges her analytical capabilities and tactical knowledge, while expressing concern about her ability to function effectively under the psychological pressure of life and death situations. The assessment suggests that while she might contribute valuably to planning and support functions, primary operational responsibilities would exceed her psychological limitations. Advanced tactical training introduces scenarios specifically designed to test candidates' reactions to extreme stress and moral ambiguity. Hostage situations involving children, terrorist attacks in crowded civilian areas, and domestic incidents requiring split-second decisions about the use of deadly force create psychological pressure that reveals fundamental character traits under conditions that simulate real operational demands. Sarah's performance in these exercises demonstrates analytical clarity and tactical sound judgment, but her measured approach to decision-making is characterized as indecisiveness by instructors who favor more aggressive responses. Her efforts to minimize civilian casualties and seek non-violent solutions when possible are portrayed as tactical hesitation rather than ethical consideration, suggesting that she lacks the psychological hardness necessary for operational effectiveness. Team-based exercises reveal additional dimensions of the bias operating against Sarah's success in the program. When assigned leadership roles, her directives are questioned more frequently and followed less willingly than those issued by male candidates with similar or inferior qualifications. Her tactical plans, while often superior to alternatives, receive implementation that ranges from reluctant compliance to subtle sabotage that ensures their failure. Agent Reeves emerges as particularly skilled at undermining Sarah's authority while maintaining plausible deniability about his intentions. His questions about her tactical decisions are phrased as requests for clarification that actually communicate doubt about her competence to other team members. His suggestions for alternative approaches are presented as helpful input that actually serves to redirect team efforts away from her planned course of action. The cumulative effect of these challenges begins to affect Sarah's confidence and performance in ways that validate the skepticism directed toward her. Sleep deprivation from worry about her standing in the program leads to minor mistakes that would normally be inconsequential, but become evidence of fundamental limitations when viewed through the lens of institutional bias. Her efforts to prove herself through exceptional performance only provide additional opportunities for criticism and failure. Force-on-force exercises using simulated weapons and live opposition forces create the most realistic training environment possible short of actual combat. Teams compete against each other and against instructor personnel who role-play terrorist or criminal opposition, testing not only tactical skills but also the ability to adapt and improvise when initial plans encounter unexpected resistance. These scenarios provide the most direct assessment available of candidates' operational readiness. Sarah's analytical approach to tactical problems proves particularly valuable during planning phases, where her ability to process complex information and identify optimal solutions becomes apparent to even skeptical observers. However, the transition from planning to execution consistently reveals implementation problems that undermine the effectiveness of her contributions. Team members who have participated in developing her plans frequently abandon them during execution in favor of improvised alternatives. One particularly revealing exercise involves a simulated terrorist attack on a government building where hostages are held on multiple floors by opponents with sophisticated weapons and surveillance systems. Sarah's analysis of building blueprints and defensive positions identifies vulnerabilities that could be exploited through coordinated assault from unexpected directions, potentially achieving tactical surprise that would minimize casualties among both hostages and operators. Her briefing to the assault team is comprehensive and tactically sound, demonstrating mastery of both analytical techniques and operational planning. However, when the exercise begins, team leader Captain Foster abandons key elements of her plan. in favor of a more conventional approach that relies on overwhelming firepower rather than tactical finesse. The resulting failure to achieve mission objectives is attributed to planning deficiencies rather than execution problems. Dr. Kellerman's psychological evaluation following this exercise focuses on Sarah's reaction to having her tactical recommendations rejected during operational execution. Questions probe whether her frustration indicates emotional instability that could affect her performance during actual operations, suggesting that her response to tactical setbacks reveals psychological vulnerabilities that disqualify her from operational assignment. The evaluation concludes that her investment in analytical solutions might compromise her ability to adapt to battlefield realities. Night operations introduce additional challenges that test candidates' ability to function effectively under conditions of limited visibility and heightened uncertainty. Urban warfare scenarios conducted in complete darkness require not only technical proficiency with night vision equipment, but also the psychological resilience to operate aggressively when sensory information is restricted and threats could emerge from any direction. Sarah's performance during these exercises reveals both strengths and limitations that complicate assessment of her operational readiness. Her analytical approach to tactical problems proves valuable for developing movement plans and identifying potential threats, but her cautious implementation of these plans is characterized as tactical timidity by instructors who favor more aggressive approaches. The distinction between prudent risk management and operational hesitation becomes a recurring theme in evaluation feedback. Combat stress inoculation exercises subject candidates to realistic psychological pressure through scenarios involving simulated casualties, equipment failures, and time-critical decision-making under extreme uncertainty. These exercises test not only tactical skills but also emotional resilience and the ability to maintain operational effectiveness when plans disintegrate and circumstances exceed training parameters. The psychological pressure proves particularly intense for Sarah, whose standing in the program creates additional stress beyond the inherent challenges of the exercises themselves. Knowledge that her performance is being scrutinized more intensely than that of other candidates compounds the natural stress of tactical scenarios, creating feedback loops where worry about evaluation affects performance in ways that justify the skepticism motivating increased scrutiny. Medical training provides another venue for assessment, as candidates learn trauma treatment techniques that could prove essential during operational situations where immediate medical attention determines survival outcomes. Sarah's analytical approach to learning these procedures proves advantageous, as she quickly masters both theoretical knowledge and practical application of emergency medical techniques. However, her competence in medical procedures becomes another source of criticism from instructors who suggest that her interest in casualty treatment indicates reluctance to engage in the aggressive tactical action that prevents casualties from occurring. The implication is that while medical skills are valuable, excessive focus on treating wounds suggests psychological unwillingness to inflict them when operationally necessary. Legal and ethical training addresses the complex regulatory environment that governs tactical operations in domestic environments where constitutional protections and legal oversight create constraints that do not exist in overseas military operations. Candidates must demonstrate understanding of rules of engagement, constitutional limitations on law enforcement action, and ethical frameworks that guide decision-making in situations where legal guidelines provide incomplete guidance. Sarah's academic background and analytical skills prove particularly valuable during these sessions, where her ability to process complex legal information and apply ethical frameworks to tactical scenarios exceeds that of candidates whose training focused more heavily on operational execution than theoretical understanding. Her contributions to class discussions demonstrate sophisticated understanding of legal and ethical issues that could affect tactical operations. Yet even this strength becomes a source of criticism from instructors who suggest that excessive concern with legal technicalities could prove paralyzing during actual operations where split-second decisions determine life and death outcomes. Her thoughtful approach to ethical dilemmas is characterized as intellectual indecision rather than moral sophistication, reinforcing impressions that she lacks the psychological directness necessary for tactical effectiveness. Technology training introduces candidates to specialized equipment that enables tactical operations in complex environments where standard approaches would prove ineffective or impossible. Surveillance systems, communications networks, and specialized weapons platforms require technical understanding that goes beyond basic operational proficiency to encompass systematic knowledge of capabilities and limitations. Sarah's analytical background proves highly advantageous during technology training, where her ability to understand complex systems and identify optimal applications quickly surpasses that of candidates whose experience focused more heavily on physical rather than technical aspects of tactical operations. Her mastery of surveillance systems and communications protocols demonstrates intellectual capabilities that could provide significant operational advantages. However, her technical competence becomes another source of segregation from other candidates who view her expertise as evidence that she is better suited for support roles than primary operational responsibilities. The suggestion emerges that while her technical skills are valuable, they indicate academic rather than warrior orientation that would limit her effectiveness during actual combat situations. Intelligence analysis training reinforces Sarah's reputation for analytical competence while simultaneously undermining perceptions of her operational potential. Exercises involving threat assessment, pattern recognition, and tactical intelligence development showcase her ability to process complex information and develop actionable intelligence that enables tactical success. Her performance during intelligence scenarios consistently exceeds that of other candidates, providing tactical advantages that could prove decisive during actual operations. However, her analytical excellence becomes evidence supporting arguments that she should remain in intelligence roles rather than transition to operational assignment, reinforcing the perception that exceptional analytical capabilities and tactical operational effectiveness are mutually exclusive rather than complementary. The second major elimination reduces the candidate pool to 22 individuals, selected for advanced tactical training that will determine final assignment within operational units. Sarah's survival of this elimination appears to result from the program's commitment to diversity rather than recognition of her qualifications, a perception that undermines her standing among remaining candidates and reinforces instructor skepticism about her operational potential. Advanced marksmanship training introduces specialized weapon systems and precision shooting techniques that enable tactical operations in complex environments where standard approaches would prove ineffective. Sniper systems, specialized assault weapons, and non-lethal alternatives require technical mastery that goes beyond basic proficiency to encompass systematic understanding of capabilities and optimal employment. Sarah's analytical approach to learning complex weapon systems proves advantageous as she quickly masters both technical specifications and tactical applications of specialized equipment. Her shooting performance with precision weapon systems matches or exceeds that of candidates whose experience focused more heavily on weapons training, demonstrating that analytical understanding can compensate for limited recent experience. However, her competence with specialized weapons becomes another source of criticism from instructors who suggest that while her technical mastery is impressive, she lacks the psychological aggression necessary to employ weapons effectively during actual combat. The distinction between technical proficiency and warrior mentality becomes a recurring theme in evaluations that acknowledge her capabilities while questioning her operational suitability. Close quarters combat training subjects candidates to realistic fighting scenarios that test both physical capabilities and psychological resilience under conditions of extreme violence and uncertainty. Hand-to-hand combat, knife fighting, and firearms employment in confined spaces require not only technical skills but also aggressive mindset that enables effective violence when circumstances demand it. Sarah's smaller physical stature creates obvious disadvantages during close-quarters combat training, but her analytical approach to learning fighting techniques proves more effective than expected. Her understanding of leverage, timing, and tactical positioning enables her to compete successfully against larger opponents whose superior strength becomes less decisive when neutralized through superior technique. Yet her success during close-quarters combat training becomes another source of criticism from instructors who suggest that while her techniques are impressive, she lacks the psychological ruthlessness necessary to employ them effectively during life-and-death situations. Her measured approach to violence is characterized as tactical hesitation that could prove fatal during actual operations where survival depends on immediate aggressive action. Hostage rescue scenarios provide the most direct assessment of candidates' readiness for the tactical operations they would conduct after graduation from the program. These exercises combine all previous training elements into realistic scenarios that test planning, execution, and adaptation under conditions that simulate actual operational demands. Sarah's analytical capabilities prove essential during hostage scenario planning, where her ability to process complex information about building layouts, hostage positions, and terrorist capabilities enables development of tactical approaches that minimize risks while maximizing probability of successful outcomes. Her contributions to planning sessions demonstrate strategic thinking that could provide significant operational advantages. However, the transition from planning to execution consistently reveals implementation problems that undermine the effectiveness of her tactical contributions. Team members who participated in developing her plans frequently abandon them during execution, citing changed circumstances that require improvised alternatives. The pattern suggests either fundamental flaws in her planning or systematic resistance to her leadership that makes fair evaluation impossible. Combat leadership exercises test candidates' ability to command tactical teams under conditions of extreme stress and uncertainty, where decisions determine both mission success and personnel survival. These scenarios require not only technical competence but also psychological authority that enables effective leadership when conventional command structures break down under pressure. Sarah's efforts to provide tactical leadership encounter resistance that ranges from subtle non-compliance to open insubordination that would be unacceptable if directed toward male candidates with similar qualifications. Her orders are questioned more frequently, her tactical decisions receive less enthusiastic implementation, and her authority is undermined through supposedly helpful suggestions that actually redirect team efforts away from her planned approaches. The cumulative effect of these leadership challenges creates performance problems that appear to validate skepticism about her capabilities while actually resulting from bias that makes success impossible regardless of her qualifications. Her increasingly tentative leadership style develops as a response to resistance rather than as evidence of fundamental limitations, but evaluations focus on symptoms rather than causes. Psychological warfare training addresses tactics used by terrorists and criminals to manipulate law enforcement response through propaganda, misinformation, and psychological pressure designed to create tactical advantages or political outcomes. Candidates must demonstrate ability to function effectively when subjected to psychological manipulation that exploits personal vulnerabilities and professional insecurities. Sarah's experience with institutional bias provides inadvertent preparation for psychological warfare techniques that attempt to undermine confidence and operational effectiveness through systematic criticism and isolation. Her ability to maintain focus and analytical clarity Despite persistent questioning of her competence demonstrates psychological resilience that could prove valuable during actual operations. However, her demonstrated ability to function under psychological pressure becomes another source of criticism from instructors, who suggest that while her resilience is impressive, it results from academic rather than operational experience with stress. The implication is that while she can endure institutional skepticism, she lacks experience with the life-and-death pressure that characterizes actual tactical operations. Final evaluations combine all training elements into comprehensive assessments that determine candidate assignment within operational units. These evaluations consider not only technical competence, but also psychological suitability, leadership potential, and overall readiness for tactical operations where mistakes could have catastrophic consequences. Sarah's final evaluation acknowledges her analytical excellence and technical competence, while expressing fundamental reservations about her operational readiness. The assessment concludes that while her intelligence capabilities could provide valuable support to tactical operations, primary operational responsibilities would exceed her psychological and physical limitations. The recommendation is for assignment to analytical rather than tactical roles within the program structure. The notification arrives with the impersonal bureaucratic language that characterizes all significant personnel decisions. Sarah's performance has been deemed commendable but insufficient for operational assignment. She will be offered a position within the program's intelligence section, where her analytical capabilities can contribute to tactical success, without requiring her to assume primary operational responsibilities. The rejection carries particular sting because it acknowledges her competence, while simultaneously denying her opportunities to employ that competence in the role she seeks. The assessment suggests that while she possesses valuable skills, she lacks intangible qualities necessary for tactical leadership that cannot be taught or developed through training. Packing her equipment for departure from Quantico, Sarah confronts the reality that her operational aspirations may represent unrealistic expectations rather than achievable goals. The systematic nature of the resistance she encountered suggests institutional barriers that individual excellence cannot overcome, patterns of bias that make success impossible regardless of qualifications or performance. The drive back to Arlington provides time for reflection on what the experience revealed about both institutional limitations and her own capabilities. While her tactical skills proved adequate and her analytical contributions were valuable, the combination was insufficient to overcome skepticism about her operational suitability that appeared determined to find justification regardless of evidence. To the contrary, her return to analytical work at the Defense Intelligence Agency requires adjustment not only to familiar routines, but also to colleagues' expectations about her experience at Quantico. Word of her participation in tactical training has created anticipation that she would either return with enhanced status or be appropriately humbled by exposure to operational realities. Her assignment to analytical rather than tactical roles suggests the latter, marking her as someone whose aspirations exceeded realistic assessment of her capabilities. The emergency notification arrives at 10:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning while Sarah processes routine intelligence reports at her Defense Intelligence Agency workstation. The automated alert system indicates a significant domestic terrorism incident, requiring immediate analytical support, but the specifics remain classified until she accepts the deployment assignment. Her supervisor, Director Robert Hayes, appears in her cubicle within minutes of the alert's arrival, his expression conveying urgency that transcends normal operational tempo. Hayes explains that an armed group has seized control of the Meridian Shopping Complex in downtown Washington, taking an estimated 80 to 100 hostages during peak morning shopping hours. The perpetrators demonstrate sophisticated knowledge of building security systems and tactical procedures that suggest military or law enforcement background. Local authorities have established a perimeter, but the scale and complexity exceed their response capabilities, necessitating federal intervention through the newly established Rapid Response Tactical Unit. The tactical team assigned to respond faces significant personnel shortages due to deployments and training injuries that have reduced their operational capacity at the worst possible moment. Most critically, their primary intelligence analyst has been hospitalized with a medical emergency, leaving them without the analytical support necessary to process the complex information flows such operations generate. Sarah's recent tactical training, combined with her analytical expertise and current security clearances, makes her uniquely qualified to provide emergency support. Deputy Director Harrison Mitchell of the Rapid Response Tactical Unit contacts Sarah directly, bypassing normal administrative channels to request her immediate deployment as a temporary intelligence analyst. His voice carries the controlled urgency of someone managing a crisis where delays could result in catastrophic casualties. The assignment would be temporary, lasting only as long as the crisis itself, but would provide her with operational experience that formal training programs had denied. Sarah's acceptance requires no deliberation or consultation with supervisors. Within 30 minutes, she has retrieved personal tactical equipment from her apartment and begun the cross-town journey to a command post being established near the shopping complex. The gear she carries represents years of preparation for opportunities that seemed increasingly unlikely, equipment maintained more from habit than realistic expectation of deployment. The Meridian Shopping Complex sprawls across 6 city blocks in Washington's commercial heart, a massive structure containing over 200 businesses that serve thousands of daily visitors. Its size and architectural complexity make it an ideal target for anyone seeking maximum psychological impact, while minimizing authorities' ability to respond effectively. The building's multiple levels, interconnected sections, and maze-like layout create tactical challenges that exceed those typically encountered during hostage situations. Sarah arrives at the command post to find controlled chaos as law enforcement agencies coordinate response efforts while gathering intelligence about the situation inside the building. Initial reports indicate 15 armed individuals have taken control using coordinated timing that suggests extensive reconnaissance and planning. The perpetrators have demonstrated knowledge of building security systems, selectively disabling surveillance cameras while maintaining visual monitoring of law enforcement positions. Commander David Walsh of the tactical team briefs Sarah with professional efficiency that barely conceals his skepticism about civilian analytical support. The hostage takers have established multiple defensive positions throughout the building and appear to be moving captives between locations to prevent rescue teams from developing accurate intelligence about their positions. Most concerning, they have made no demands and established no communication with authorities, suggesting ideological motivation or operational plans that do not include negotiated resolution. Sarah's assignment involves establishing and maintaining accurate situational awareness, using all available intelligence sources while the tactical team prepares for potential assault operations. Security camera feeds that remain operational, electronic communications intercepts, structural analysis of building plans, and coordination with human intelligence sources will provide the foundation for tactical planning that could determine whether hostages survive or become casualties. The intelligence picture that emerges from Sarah's analysis reveals sophistication that exceeds initial assessments. The perpetrators have divided the building into distinct zones with different groups responsible for specific areas and functions. Their movement patterns demonstrate military-style organization and discipline, while their defensive positions show advanced understanding of urban combat principles. These individuals are not desperate amateurs acting impulsively, but trained operators executing a carefully developed plan. Sarah's examination of building blueprints reveals critical factors that previous assessments had overlooked. The complex's ventilation system includes maintenance corridors connecting all floors and sections, providing potential movement routes that bypass heavily defended main passages. The building's structural design creates natural choke points where small tactical teams could establish decisive advantages against larger forces. Most importantly, the terrorists' offensive positions, while excellent for repelling conventional assault, contain vulnerabilities exploitable by operators with detailed building system knowledge. Her analysis identifies patterns in hostage movements, suggesting the perpetrators are concentrating captives in locations serving tactical rather than negotiation purposes. The largest group, approximately 50 individuals, appears held in the main atrium where their visibility provides psychological pressure on authorities while serving as human shields against assault. Smaller groups distributed throughout the building would require separate rescue operations, complicating any coordinated response and increasing casualty risks. As Sarah develops this intelligence framework, time pressure intensifies with reports that some hostages may require medical attention, while unconfirmed intelligence suggests the perpetrators may be preparing to execute captives if unknown demands are not met. The window for successful intervention appears to be closing rapidly, but conventional assault approaches risk catastrophic casualties among hostages who cannot be evacuated before combat operations begin. Walsh reviews Sarah's analysis with growing recognition that her detailed understanding of building systems and tactical positioning provides options that standard approaches would not consider. Her identification of maintenance corridors and structural vulnerabilities creates possibilities for unconventional entry routes and surprise attacks that could succeed where direct assaults would fail catastrophically. However, implementing her suggestions requires tactical operators capable of navigating complex building systems while maintaining combat effectiveness under extreme pressure. The critical moment arrives when Walsh receives notification that his primary assault team has been delayed by equipment failures and will not arrive for at least 2 hours. The secondary team, while highly trained, lacks specialized skills necessary to implement the complex approach Sarah's analysis suggests. As afternoon shadows lengthen and intelligence reports indicate increasing desperation among perpetrators, Walsh faces a commander's nightmare: clear tactical opportunities that cannot be exploited due to resource limitations. Sarah recognizes the situation's implications before Walsh verbalizes them. His team possesses the analytical framework for success, but lacks operational capability to implement it effectively. Her analysis has identified the solution, but implementation requires someone who understands both the intelligence picture and tactical requirements for exploiting it successfully. The gap between planning and execution has become the critical factor determining whether 80 lives are saved or lost in the next few hours. When Sarah volunteers to accompany the assault team as a tactical guide, Walsh's initial reaction is immediate refusal based on protocols that prohibit civilian participation in high-risk operations, regardless of qualifications or tactical advantages they might provide. However, as time pressure mounts and alternatives disappear, practical realities force reconsideration of policies written for normal, rather than extraordinary circumstances that demand innovative solutions. Sarah's argument proves both simple and compelling. She possesses the most detailed understanding of building systems and terrorist positions currently available, while her recent tactical training provides at least basic operational capability sufficient for the limited role she proposes. Her participation would be restricted to guiding the assault team through optimal routes and identifying targets based on real-time intelligence analysis rather than serving as a primary combatant. Walsh's decision to authorize Sarah's participation violates established protocols, exceeds his command authority, and risks his career, but represents the kind of leadership initiative that elite operations sometimes require when conventional approaches prove inadequate. Sarah will accompany Team Alpha through maintenance corridors she has identified, providing tactical guidance while remaining under protection of qualified operators whose responsibility includes her safety as well as mission success. The final briefing occurs as daylight fades beyond command post windows, with Sarah's route analysis providing the foundation for an approach that could reach all major hostage locations within 4 minutes of initial breach. The perpetrator's confidence in their defensive positions becomes a vulnerability when those positions are bypassed rather than confronted directly, transforming their strength into exploitable weakness through tactical innovation. Sarah checks her equipment one final time, ensuring communication systems, tactical gear, and the sidearm she has not fired operationally in 6 years are ready for immediate use. The weight of responsibility settles across her shoulders as she prepares to transition from analytical support to operational participation, where 80 lives depend on her ability to translate theoretical knowledge into practical action under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. The approach through maintenance corridors proves as viable as Sarah's analysis predicted, with the assault team reaching predetermined positions without triggering alarms or encountering resistance, moving single file through spaces barely accommodating tactical equipment. They navigate a maze of mechanical rooms, utility passages, and service corridors that building plans only approximately represent. Sarah's guidance proves essential as theoretical knowledge transforms into practical navigation under combat conditions. The coordinated assault begins precisely at 1847 with simultaneous breaches at 4 locations throughout the building. Sarah guides Team Alpha to their primary objective in the main atrium, where 50 hostages are guarded by 6 armed perpetrators, whose defensive positions become vulnerabilities when approached from unexpected directions. Her real-time analysis of tactical situations allows the team to exploit angles that neutralize terrorist advantages, while minimizing crossfire risks to innocent civilians. The engagement unfolds with shocking speed as 4 minutes of coordinated movement, precision shooting, and tactical expertise result in neutralization of all 15 perpetrators with minimal casualties among hostages or operators. Sarah's role throughout the operation exceeds planned limitations as tactical situations require real-time decisions that only someone with both analytical knowledge and operational capability can make effectively under extreme pressure. When smoke clears and the complex is secured, 87 hostages emerge, alive from what could have been a massacre that would have dominated international headlines for months. 3 individuals require medical treatment for minor injuries sustained during the rescue operation, while psychological counseling is arranged for all survivors who witnessed violence that will affect them for years to come. The operation succeeds beyond the most optimistic projections, validating tactical approaches that conventional wisdom would have dismissed as impossibly risky. Commander Walsh's after-action report emphasizes that mission success depended critically on analytical capabilities that enabled unconventional tactical approaches impossible through standard procedures. Without Sarah's detailed understanding of building systems and real-time intelligence analysis, the operation would have required catastrophic frontal assaults or lengthy siege tactics, likely resulting in significant hostage casualties and national trauma. Deputy Director Mitchell's evaluation goes further, noting that Sarah's performance during the crisis demonstrates operational capabilities that formal training assessments had failed to recognize adequately. Her ability to transition seamlessly between analytical and tactical roles, while maintaining effectiveness under extreme stress, suggests previous evaluations emphasized credentials over competence, recent experience over fundamental capability, and institutional conformity over innovative problem-solving. 6 weeks later, Sarah receives notification of her selection for permanent assignment to the Rapid Response Tactical Unit, not as an analyst but as a full operational member with additional responsibilities for intelligence integration that leverage her unique combination of analytical expertise and demonstrated tactical capability. The assignment represents vindication not only of her individual capabilities, but also of principles suggesting excellence can emerge from unexpected sources when organizational structures remain flexible enough to recognize and develop unconventional talent. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.